Hello. How's it going? I'm just checking my levels. All right, looks good. How's it going? It is Friday again. Last week I did a live stream on Thursday. Today is Friday. Back to the normal schedule. So, a lot happening today as usual. I just realized I didn't tweet this out. Give me a second. I felt like something was off. I'm like, what am I not doing before going live? And it was not tweeting this out. But as I do this, let me try and talk at the same time, which is really not possible for me. All right, tweeted. Now retweeted. All right, there we go. So, happy Friday. Hey, everybody. I can read some names today, maybe. The chat's still ramping up there, though we have a pretty good viewership right now. But what's up, Brian, Ryan, Javier, Dimitri. Trying to scroll up here, see who I'm missing. A lot of people I'm missing. Jet, how's it going? Dominique, cool. A lot of people here. In case you don't know, I also do a stream on in the mornings, Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Twitch. It is a much more laid-back stream. I get to talk more with the chat, as there's usually less people in there than on YouTube. But that may be changing. So it may get to a point where it also becomes hard to have that kind of interaction. But before I get going, of course, I got to remind you that therationalnational.com/join. That's the Patreon page. Help support the show. Help keep me going. You know YouTube's unreliable. You could also, of course, be a YouTube member. Give on Super Chat. I'm already seeing Super Chats come in, including a big one. So that's very much welcomed as well. Any support helps. Let me give you a little preview of today's show before I get to... I'll grab these quick Super Chats and then I'll get going. That was loud. And then I'll get going into... look at that. And then I'll get going into the stories. So first, let me tell you what's on deck today. So I purposely made today's title very vague, really telling you nothing, just so it keeps you guessing. But I got a story on Cori Bush, several videos on Cori Bush, Nina Turner and who she backs for vice president, what the Dem convention has planned in terms of speakers, and how it is crazy. It's going to be one of those things. I mean, of course, I'll talk more about it later, but there's not going to be a lot to really pay attention to. You're likely not even going to want to watch most of it. Also, CNBC squirms around Bernie's new proposal for billionaires. A man that created ICE is painting immigrants for a new book of his. I'll tell you who that man is. And also, near the end, Ben Shapiro says something about Nancy Pelosi that is completely insane. It's always fun to cover Ben Shapiro. All right, first, let me grab these Super Chats, and then we will we'll get going. Oh, before I do that, actually, I think I forgot to do this last week, so I made sure to do it this week. I want to promote another channel. This week, the Nomiki Show. Nomiki Konst right here on YouTube. Make sure you sub to her show. Fantastic insight, especially when it comes to the Democratic Party and how it functions. I just recently watched her video, this one here, on why you should care about the DNC convention. So check that out. Nomiki's been very involved in the Democratic Party process and fighting for the progressive side on that. So she has a lot of great insights in terms of discussing what you should know about the Democratic Party and this convention. So check out this video, subscribe to her show, and you will dig it. Nomiki does awesome work. All right. Super chats, and then I'll get moving. Already several in. Crazy. Adam Knight says, David, my daughter wants to primary your girlfriend. I should pre-read these before reading them out loud. That's hilarious. Ravi Parimi says, there were some comments on your video about Bernie's virtual meeting with Jamal Bowman and others made by a person, Dieter. He claimed Bowman would be as progressive as Obama and Bernie endorsing Biden without getting anything in return. Thoughts? You're repeating a YouTube comment. There are several YouTube comments that you could have also referenced that are just as ridiculous. No. Look, obviously, it's stupid to even try and make predictions like this. Jamal Bowman has a lifelong fight in education, fighting for real people. You can go ahead and question it, fine. If this person, this random YouTube commenter, wants to claim that they're going to, back away from these issues like Obama did, okay, they can make that prediction. They can claim that. I don't know who this person is. I don't really care. I don't agree with them, but we'll see who's right. Wait and see. Just wait and see. I mean, the reason I covered that video yesterday is because it shows you Jamal Bowman's unafraid. He is going to be a congressperson, and he is openly saying how Bernie Sanders was screwed by the Democratic Party establishment. I feel like if he was not going to be a fighter, he wouldn't be talking like that right now. But again, wait and see for yourself. But thank you for the big donation. Much appreciated. Even though I think you could have asked a better question, but I'm joking. But thank you. Boogie O. Winston says, thoughts on... Are you the same Winston from Twitch? I'm curious. Boogie O. Winston says, thoughts on Shahid Buttar allegations. So I have read... I don't know about the... there were initially, I believe... there were certain allegations I haven't read into. I read somebody who was on his campaign. They had a Medium post. I think this one came out this week. They have a Medium post that, look, essentially amounts to they feel like Shahid Buttar is a bad leader. They had some combative run-ins with him. I got to read more into it. My impression is that this kind of, sure, you can call it maybe a toxic work environment. But to then call for him to step down, to end his campaign because you had a bad experience in that environment, I don't really understand that. But it's fine for that person to share their story, share their perspective on what happened. Go right ahead. Look, I haven't interviewed Shahid Buttar, so I don't know him. I have no idea. So obviously, people that work with him have a much better idea of what the man's like in person. But, when we're talking about politicians, what I care about is what they have done for the general public. You can argue about their methods, argue about them behind the scenes. Of course, if they did something that's illegal or terrible, then yeah, that's a different story. But if they're just, combative in the workplace, not fun to work with, then don't work for them. And if they happen to be fighting for actual people and get things through, then, I think it's worth a discussion. Because the way that the general public interacts with someone like that is through what they do in public, what they do for the public. I mean, you had Amy Klobuchar throwing binders at people, and we're laughing about it. Like, I wasn't, sure, on one hand, I'm saying this is not the kind of person that, you'd want to work for. But that doesn't mean that I don't think Amy Klobuchar should leave her seat because she made somebody, what was it? Use her comb to eat food or something? Some weird story like that. But I don't think Amy Klobuchar should step aside out of her Senate seat because she was a bad person to work for. I think she should get out because she's a horrible senator, but not because she was a bad person to work for. So I feel like I'm pretty consistent on that. But again, if it creeps into other territory, then yeah, then obviously it's a little different. Tyler Cross says, my brother introduced you to me. I love your work. Thank you for everything. Cool. Thank you, Tyler. Lorna Paisley says, I appreciate your hard work and general calm. Occasional rants are well deserved. Thank you. All right. Let me get to this first story. No more waiting here. I also, when it comes to the Shahid Buttar stuff, I'm curious what other people think as well. Like, it's going to be hard to follow the chat now as it's going pretty quickly. But I would like to, I'm curious what people think about it. Humanist Report did a pretty good video on the allegations. All right, I'll check him out. So Mike Figueredo does awesome work. That comment was from 1on11162. So check out Mike's video on it. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm curious to check it out. All right. So earlier this week, Cori Bush defeated Lacey Clay, who is a staple in Missouri, comes from a dynasty. His father held that seat, lost to Cori Bush in an incredibly shocking win. Cori Bush is a progressive black, working class single mother, a nurse, a pastor, one of the lead Black Lives Matter activists in Ferguson, one of the original Justice Democrat, a COVID-19 survivor, and she's formerly homeless. Now, Cori Bush is one incredible fighter. I have several videos here that I want to showcase. Here she is on with Joy Reid on MSNBC. But of course, pay attention to what Cori Bush here has to say.
Yeah. Well, and your story is really moving. I mean, I was reading about the fact that, at one point, you had to leave your job. You're working in preschool education, lived in your truck, in your car for a while with your young children. You've been through those kinds of struggles. As you said, you're a working class woman. Do you think that that's what's missing in Congress? So many of those people are millionaires and multimillionaires. So many of them are not disconnected from the idea that $600 extra in your unemployment check could make all the difference in the world. That's something they can't relate to. Do you think the fact that you can relate to those kinds of struggles, do you think that that will make you a different kind of congresswoman, and in what way would you be different?
Yes, it will make me a different congressperson. I think that we need to have different people from different walks of life that represent our country. And so this district is, we have a lot of poverty. We have, but we don't just have poverty. So we need people who can represent on different levels in Congress. For me, being someone who has lived out of my car, let me tell you, that pain of the struggle that I've been through, I can still feel that pain right now. So that pain is walking with me into the doors of Congress, and that's what's going to feed me. That's what's going to fuel everything that I do. That, and then what I've seen the rest of the people in our community go through, how much we have had to fight. And when we're looking at what's happening in other places, it's like, why are we fighting so much? Why do we have to struggle so hard? Especially Black women in this community. We're fighting so much. Where is the relief? Well, I'm ready to bring the relief. I'm ready to be that champion because I've been fighting this thing, unpaid fighting it, just because we need a different type of life. We need quality to our lives. We have to stop surviving St. Louis and start thriving here.
All right. So great. Incredible comments there from Cori Bush. But before I even get to that, I have to just address the fact that this is on Joy Reid's show. Joy Reid has been somebody who's been fighting against a progressive agenda for the past several years on MSNBC. So, she brought in a body language expert to attack Bernie Sanders after a debate. A body language expert that had also been on Fox News multiple times to attack Democrats. She's been fighting against Medicare for All her entire career up until this month, where she finally came out publicly for Medicare for All. So, look, an imperfect platform here, but it's important that people like Cori Bush engage with these platforms to be able to spread their message to more people. And somebody who's been homeless, who's actually struggled, who understands what that's been like and has had a lifelong fight in activism, fighting for the average person. This is exactly what Congress has been missing for decades. And now, back in 2018 with the elections of AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and others, and now with Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, and others, you are beginning to see the Democratic Party unravel, the traditional Democratic Party unravel, and be made anew in for progressive candidates, for fighting for real people with these sorts of nominees. So, look, it's been a long time coming, and I think a lot of people they've been pissed off for a good reason and have been disengaged from politics for a while because for a long time they saw two parties not representing them. But now that you can see it's definitely possible to take down people that are even from political dynasties that have been a staple in their community for over 50 years, that it's possible to take those Democrats down, that means no Democrat is safe. And the Democratic Party is going to begin, members of the party are going to begin to realize that, and are not just going to be considering their corporate donors, but are also going to be considering, hey, if I say vote against Medicare for all, do I have to worry about a primary challenge next year? So these are the kinds of thoughts that are now beginning to run through the heads of members of Congress. Now, let me show you. I got a couple more here. So Cori Bush was on a recent live stream with Bernie Sanders, Rashida Tlaib, and Jamal Bowman, and made some comments here as well about Medicare for all that are, as a nurse, Cori Bush has a unique experience dealing with healthcare.
Cori, healthcare a human right?
Absolutely. It's a human right. As a nurse and most of my background being in community health, I've seen my patients die because they didn't have health care. My patients were rationing their insulin, and not only rationing the insulin, but they were then sharing it with a cousin, so just totally going against the doctor's orders, and they weren't getting the medication that they needed. And so they would die. They would get a foot cut off, then a leg, and then they would die. Just thinking about what that also does to your credit. How do we come out of a place of poverty if we don't have insurance? That is always that's going to our credit. And for somebody like me, if I'm a Black woman making 61 cents on the dollar, so I don't even get my whole dollar. And then on top of that, if I don't have insurance, then that money is, then I'm in this spiral of debt. And then, even myself, just thinking about working as a nurse, I remember having a patient. It was a young woman. She had 4 children. They were all stair-step. And this woman made her way to the mental health clinic. She took public transportation with these 4 children. She was actively hallucinating. She was not well. She needed her medicine, but she made it all the way to the clinic. She sat in the waiting area for an hour and a half waiting to see the doctor. We finally got her in to see the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist wrote medications for her. She was so happy because she was there. She walked into my office. The issue was she didn't have health insurance. And so I had to find a way to get her medication, $3,600 worth of medication. I had to try to find that. But the problem was those particular medications we couldn't give her that day. So I had to tell this woman that came through all of that had these children that were screaming and jumping off of everything. And, she was just trying to get help. She came to the clinic to get help, and we couldn't help her. We have to do better because we did not do her a service nor those children a service.
So there are a million stories like that in America. Millions of people who can't afford their health care, or now during coronavirus have been kicked off their health insurance because it's tied to their employer. I can't explain to you how insane that system is. As an outsider who is not American, I can't explain to you how insane it is to have healthcare tied to your employer. What sense does that make? That's just a pure benefit for the employer, because then they can treat you like crap. They can pay you a low wage. But if you have great healthcare, then a lot of people are going to stay in that job, even if they hate their boss, hate what they do, don't enjoy the work. They're going to stay in that job because if they lose, they're going to lose healthcare. So millions of people stay in a place in their life where they are unhappy because they are afraid of losing their healthcare. That's completely insane. And then when you have a pandemic like this and you lose your healthcare, lose your job, you got nothing. Other countries guarantee healthcare to their citizens in all different ways. To give you the example, in Canada, it is essentially like a Medicare for all system. It is a single payer system. Everybody pays into it. The wealthiest people, your Congress people, would be on the same healthcare plan as you are under a Medicare for all system. So how bad is it really going to get if the wealthiest people and your Congress people are on the same healthcare plan as you are? And another example, I mean, in Canada, you can, just going back to the healthcare and the employer thing, you can leave your job, you can go back to school, you can start a business, and the entire time you have the exact same healthcare plan because it's completely separate from what you do for your career or what you're doing in life or where you are in life. It's completely separate. So you have the same doctor the entire time. I've heard stories from Americans. They've had like 20, 30 different doctors because they always have a different doctor. I've had 2 doctors my entire life. And it's only because the first one retired and was replaced by the second one. That's the only reason. But I've had the exact same doctor my entire life. That's most people that have a family doctor that they like under a universal system. Because why would they have to change doctors unless they move? So it's just a completely different experience. You never think about healthcare. This is the other thing that Americans, I don't think, really truly understand. Healthcare is never on my mind. If I need it, if I wake up sick, then it's on my mind. I go to the doctor, see the doctor, get prescriptions, whatever. But in everyday life, I'm not thinking about it. But Americans have to think about the cost, have to think about it being tied to their employer and if they're going to lose it and what kind of out-of-pocket expenses are they going to have. How much is, say, insulin going to be? Insulin is 1/10 the cost in Canada compared to the U.S. Again, just it's a completely different way of life because healthcare is directly tied to your life. So if you don't have healthcare, if you're in a place in the U.S. where you are not making a lot of money or don't have a job, just lost your job, you don't have healthcare, the amount of stress that puts on the individual or and families in general, it's completely insane. It's an insane way to live. I got one more clip here. This is Cori Bush, after she won, discussing what one of her first goals are going to be when she gets to Congress.
Making sure that we bring home a $2,000 a month UBI that's retroactive, that will last for a year. But that $2,000 a month, this is for COVID-19 relief, that $2,000 a month does not mean take money away from social programs that we have right now. We have to put more money into that, but then also a reinvestment in our school system, taking that money that was taken out of the federal education system and put into private prisons, defund that. We need to go and get that money back and put it into our school system.
This is exactly what Americans need in Congress. Now, understand that a lot of this will not be discussed if you still got to fight Donald Trump. It's not even going to be brought up for discussion. If you cut the tumor off, get Trump out, you'll be able to have more of these policy discussions. Because, in the past, people say, well, why weren't we having it before? Because you didn't have these people in Congress. So people, we could talk about it on YouTube, you could talk about it on Twitter, but unless the actual politicians are discussing it, you're not going to hear about it. But you've seen how the general media has covered AOC. And for that matter, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Bernie Sanders, they get time on television. They get to speak their mind. So if you have more of those fighters and people that are, out there fighting for real issues like Cori Bush, who's already, as I showed you earlier, already getting interviews on mainstream networks, you're going to be hearing this conversation a lot more. But if the questions towards people like this are always going to be about Donald Trump, if he's still in, then it cuts down on the time that they got to talk about real issues. And I mean, if you have Republicans in charge, none of this is even going to be up for debate ever. So it's important to keep that in mind when seeing fighters like this, that their hands are tied as long as Republicans are in control. But as I showed you in a recent video with Bernie Sanders fighting Barack Obama back in 2013 on Social Security, Obama wanted to cut Social Security. Bernie was fighting against him publicly. You're going to see that same public fight against Joe Biden when Joe Biden doesn't come out for these various issues like $2,000 a month retroactive to help people. So I am very excited. I am very excited about Cori Bush, very excited about Jamal Bowman and others that have also won their primaries and likely will win the races in November. I'm very excited to see how the conversation changes come next year. All right. Let's go to chat. Walker Miller, will you do a video on Democrats and the DHS bill? DHS bill. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I have been inundated with a million different topics, and also trying to follow what's happening in Canada, though I'm not always successful at doing that. In terms of expanding surveillance powers, all right, you know what? I'll read more into it so I get a better idea. I assume this relates to what was happening in Portland as they were overseeing that, but I am not positive, so I will look more into it. Nickelodeon81 says, keep up the good work, watching from the UK. Thank you. Constant Chaos says, America has single payer for some, just stayed in hospital for a full week and got thousands in meds. My bill was $62. I'm tired of private, give to all. Yeah. Definitely need single payer. Mikey Kingston says, it's Friday. You know what that means. Bubba Booey. Thank you, Mikey. Junior McGrath says, I can relate to Cori Bush's homelessness. I was homeless, lived in a car until it was towed, then in the streets, and eventually sleeping in the Chicago subways until February 2019. I respect anyone who can survive that hell. Wow. I did not know that, Junie, and you've been a longtime supporter of mine. Thank you so much. I can't imagine. I've been pretty fortunate in my life to never be in that situation. So I'm glad you shared your story. Samantha Sider says, donate to Ed Markey and Jen Perlman to keep up momentum. Absolutely. Ed Markey, his race is at the beginning of September. I believe it's September 1st, actually, against Joe Kennedy III, trying to primary him out of his Senate seat. So back Ed Markey, donate to Ed Markey, and Jen Perlman, who I've had on the show a couple times, fantastic candidate going up against Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida. Donate to Jen Perlman. Check out my interviews as well. If you go to the interviews playlist on my channel, you'll see my discussions with Jen Perlman. She's a fantastic candidate, and links are below in that video to her page as well. Rad Zoso says, kudos to the voters who are now starting to realize that candidates who are funded by the people represent the people. Yes, exactly. It does appear that voters are waking up to that. I covered the story earlier in the day, the video that I put up. That incredible upset in Tennessee. A candidate I hadn't even heard of, Bradshaw. I hadn't even heard of her until she won that Senate seat. So it's showing you that, obviously a lot of these races are, when they're in their states, I assume there's ads, although in her case, she had only had $8,000. So I'm not even sure how people heard of her. But won that Senate primary race. And people are beginning to realize that whether it's Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, other candidates, that where your money comes from, who funds you, matters a lot. And even if you only have $8,000, you can actually win a primary. Even though the person she was up against raised $2.1 million. Incredible. All right. I'll pause there on the chats. I hear more coming in, but I'll pause there. Let me get to prepping the next story. Man, I had Chinese food earlier. A couple days old. A couple days old. I'm never quite sure. I don't know if people in the chat want to weigh in on this. I'm never quite sure how long you can keep takeout, or let's say in this case Chinese food. How long you can keep it for until it's bad. I ate it today, and I feel like I don't feel 100% today. My stomach doesn't feel perfect. Definitely did not sit with me well, but I'm pushing through. I will say though, since I don't eat meat, I don't eat beef, don't eat chicken, don't eat pork. I imagine that means the food can last a little longer, but I'm not positive on that. All right, in case you're new to the stream, I always say this, but in case you're new, I'm the only person here, so I got to prep my own stories, just so you know what's happening. All right. Wendy Melly says, be vegan. I tried. I really tried. The issue with being vegan for me is I like creamy sauces. So I love burritos. I like to have burrito sauce in my burritos. It's the issue is there's just you can definitely do it, make those kinds of sauces in a vegan way, but it's just harder to find. And when I'm out, you know, and I'm not at home making a burrito, but I'm out somewhere, I don't want to restrict my enjoyment of that burrito. So I got to get the creamy sauces. It's kind of hard to ignore those milk-based sauces. All right. So there appears to be a new favorite for vice president from progressive lawmakers, Karen Bass. So Karen Bass is a Democratic congresswoman from Los Angeles. She is in contention to be Biden's VP, one of the finalists. So right now, I believe it's around, like, it's Karen Bass, Susan Rice, Kamala Harris, maybe Warren. I feel like Warren's out of the conversation now, though. So there's a potential this may happen. Now, look, of course, this is not my first choice. My first choice, always Nina Turner, but Joe Biden was never going to pick Nina Turner, so it was always out of the question. Second choice, Barbara Lee. I think a very realistic choice. Definitely could have been a finalist here, but maybe they thought too risky. So Karen Bass appears to be the choice, and I'll get to in a second a couple of people who I trust that are backing Karen Bass for VP. So this Politico headline, over 300 DNC delegates, members urge Biden to pick Bass for VP. So more than 300 delegates from the DNC and members of the Democratic National Committee, from the convention and committee, have signed on to a statement pushing Joe Biden to choose Karen Bass as a unity vice presidential pick, Politico has learned. Now, one of those people is Nina Turner. Nina Turner, former co-chair of Sanders' 2020 campaign, signed on to the statement too. Quote, Congresswoman Bass would make an excellent vice president, Turner said. Her commitment to the grassroots is evident in her work from activist to the California legislature to Congress. She has a record of building coalitions, especially during turbulent times, and this skill set is absolutely needed in the critical moment in our nation's history. Moreover, she brings a strong progressive voice to the table that speaks to the future of America. Now, this is a great endorsement for Karen Bass, which makes me think it's not going to happen. It's getting to the point where I'm beginning to think he's going to pick Susan Rice. I really, it's going to be somebody horrible. And, you know, Kamala would not be a good pick. But she'd be better than Rice. But, you know, maybe we'll be surprised. maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised. I'll get to in a minute something Karen Bass was against back in the 90s that impressed me. But before I do that, let me tell you who else backs Karen Bass, potentially for VP, though he has not signed on to it. Ro Khanna, another former Sanders co-chair, said Bass is a healer at a time the nation needs a healer, though he did not sign on to the pro-Bass statement and had previously endorsed Warren for vice president. So because he already backed Warren, I think that's why he didn't sign this letter for Bass. But I imagine if he didn't sign that letter for Warren, that he'd be for Bass. I think Warren's out of it at this point. But again, we could be surprised. And even if Warren, again, just to be clear here, there is no VP picked out that's going to save the Joe Biden presidency or save the Joe Biden campaign. This election is really about just getting out Donald Trump. And we know anybody who's VP, they're still not the one in charge. They're still going to be having to listen to Joe Biden. So anybody who's picked here, even if they have occasional inclinations to do good things, that's likely going to be quashed with Biden and his administration. But I just say this in terms of it does matter in 4 years because when Biden, it seems unlikely that Biden's going to last 8 years. You see him right now. You should try not to. He's not doing well. He's having many horrible moments. Every time he gets interviewed, he says something incredibly stupid. They should just hide him in the basement. If they actually care about winning, just winning. Hide him in the basement. Let him be hidden. What's the media going to do? They're going to say, oh, we can't interview Joe Biden. And we'll all be like, oh, isn't that crazy? They're hiding him. And then we're all going to forget they're hiding him and be focused on Trump destroying the country. I mean, this is, as I discussed earlier, you can't really have a discussion about any other policy issue until Trump's out. Trump is this massive cancerous tumor. You have to cut off the tumor to be able to have any discussion about anything else. And again, this election, to me, the way I view it, it's not about voting for who you like because you got two shitty choices. It's about voting for who you want to fight. I would rather fight Joe Biden than fight Donald Trump. Donald Trump locks up peaceful protesters, snatches people off the street that aren't even doing anything, puts them into unmarked vans and drives off. Tear gases peaceful protesters that are moms in Portland. There is no discussion with the Trump administration, just neo-fascism. With Biden, I don't expect him to do anything. Don't get me wrong. I don't expect him to do anything. But there's at least a discussion there. There's a fight. And there's a potential because of that fight to be able to grow the movement and continue to grow that pressure and put that pressure on the Democratic Party establishment and continue to, primary out these more corporate-leaning Democrats. So that's really what this discussion for me is around. But let me get to a little bit more on Karen Bass here. Yeah. Bass grew up in a black middle-class neighborhood, Los Angeles, trained as a physician assistant and worked in an emergency room as the crack epidemic hit LA. She began a substance abuse and treatment center, a nonprofit that grew into the Community Coalition, which remains an influential advocacy group in the city. At a time when the government moved to further criminalize drug possession and violently police black and brown neighborhoods, Bass argued addiction was a public health crisis and advocated against the infamous 1994 tough on crime law that Biden helped write. She lobbied to replace liquor shops in South LA with housing and grocery stores, battled to build more schools, and campaigned to keep children from being forced into foster care. And then she was elected to the California Assembly in 2004 and was elected Speaker of the Assembly 2 years later, becoming the first black woman to lead a state legislative house. And then I believe in 2010, it says here somewhere, but I believe in 2010, that's when she joined Congress. So you have somebody here who was vocally against Biden's crime bill, is also for Medicare for all, is also for the Green New Deal. I'm kind of surprised she's even in the running to be vice president. So again, not to say that Bass will be running the Biden administration. Obviously, she would not be. But to have at least that person in Biden's ear, I think is important. So when you have people, I mean, for me, it really comes down to people that I trust. I trust Ro Khanna. I especially trust Nina Turner. With them backing her, I think that means something. I think you should put real weight behind that. That matters. So will this end up being the pick? I'm inclined to say no. I'm inclined to say I don't think it will, because of these pluses, and because she will be that more progressive voice. I don't think they're going to pick her, but I would love to be pleasantly surprised. There we go. In case you wonder why I paused there in the middle of that video, I accidentally opened Photoshop, which has the potential to slow down my entire computer when I do that. So I had to make sure it was shut down before I went going, or kept going. But yeah, sometimes that happens. All right, let me grab some chats here. Shit, you know what I just realized? Okay, I think I'm okay. I am running out of space on my computer. I have to delete something, which is really random here. But I'm recording my live stream, and if I record while I hit this limit, it's going to screw up my recording. So if you just give me half a second. All right. All right, man. I'm all over the place today. All right. Where was I on these chats? I was right here. Ryan Nowicki. In 2007, Executive Order Directive 51 was signed by Bush. It gives POTUS broad emergency powers under a catastrophe. Some think Trump will enact this to disrupt voting. Have you heard of this? I have not heard of this. I would not be surprised. Trump's going to try everything. I feel like right now they're doing a lot with the post office. The new postmaster general, I think he comes from like FedEx or something, or UPS. So somebody who is inclined to want to defund the post office and get rid of it. So I think he's gotten rid of overtime pay, a number of other measures that essentially have slowed down the USPS. And that will lead directly into voting by mail and impacting the time that those ballots take to come in and get counted. So you already see that move from him. There's, of course, going to be, voter suppression in various ways, voter disenfranchisement. People kicked off rolls, I'm sure will happen. This is why it is so important to overwhelm the vote. I mean, really, unless you're in New York or California, and a lot of people are, if you're in New York or California, you're probably safe to vote for whatever. If you really want to vote, Green Party or third party or independent, I get it. I ran as a Green Party candidate in Canada. So I understand that. But pretty much every other state, there's a potential that it could be flipped. So you have to overwhelm the vote. Trump's going to try everything he can, because he knows he's deeply unpopular. He's an idiot, but he at least knows that. He at least knows that he is being hammered in polling right now. So they will do whatever they can to try and impact the result. Rachel Atwood says, got my MA absentee ballot, sticking with Ed. Good. Good to see support for Ed Markey. Tyler Cuss said I had to pay $500 just to go get an HIV test. $500 for an HIV test. I don't even understand. I don't understand your system. It's completely insane to me. I've had surgery, been to a doctor, many times, never had to pay anything. I've only, of course, had to pay for, the occasional prescription for whatever, for being sick. But those have never been more than $50. Usually around like $20, $30. When I was working for other companies, they would have, additional healthcare coverage that you can get through an employer that would cover those costs. So the idea of paying for healthcare in general, I think, to me, is just completely ridiculous. Healthcare is a right, or should be a right. Adam Bryceland says, donate to Alex Morris in Massachusetts second. All right, I haven't followed every race. I have not followed Alex Morris, but check him out. Rachel Atwood says, donate to Alex Morse. Another person saying it. All right, you know what? Check out Alex Morse. Check out Alex Morse in Massachusetts. Thank you for your super chat. Oh, yeah, it's against Neil. Okay, that's the race. Yeah, so I recognize Neil's name. Yes, Alex Morse. Definitely. You know what? Does he have a video? Assuming there's no copyright music on that, it's going to get me taken down. Maybe I can play a quick Alex Morse video. Yeah, who's it? Richard Neal, right? Horrible. Here we go. Let's check out. So if you're watching this later and there's no audio, you'll know why. Copyrighted music. But let's check out Alex Morse's video here.
My mom grew up in one of the city's public housing complexes and met my father at another housing project in the city. Both of them didn't have the opportunity to go on to college. They've worked their entire lives to move out of poverty. My mom ran a daycare in my childhood home, and my father has worked at the same meatpacking company for 33 years. My family has struggles that many families around this district have, whether it's Holyoke or Springfield or parts of the Berkshires that once relied on manufacturing, and the economy's changed. To the extent that we can show people that your member of Congress can be an incredibly powerful tool to improve your quality of life, to improve your community, is something that needs to be reminded to every single person in every single city and town in this district. I graduated from college and decided to return to my hometown to run for mayor.
He knocked on probably 90 or 95% of the doors in Holyoke. One guy that he spoke to, he was 70-something years old. He said, I've lived in Holyoke all my life, and no one has ever knocked on my door said they were running for mayor.
I was like, wow, yes, here's the young people taking on the tradition of not someone having to tell them what to do, but knowing that there's something that needs to be changed here, and I need to do something to make a difference.
Growing up in Holyoke and there being very little democracy, very little civic engagement, no one showing up to those meetings and speaking out and holding elected officials accountable, I felt like it was important to be able to provide a vision and path forward that I felt like was lacking for so many years.
I think that he's made a difference. This builds hope in our community, and that is one of the things that I take away from what I've seen.
We have investments happening, companies moving in, new families moving in, the schools improving. I think our story on a smaller scale provides a roadmap for which we could look at the challenges in other places. There's an urgency in this moment in our country, and that urgency is not matched by our current representative in Congress. It's no accident that we have the disparities we have in the district. There's no transparency. It sends the message that wealthy donors and corporate PACs and corporations are far more important than the interests and needs and struggles of the people that we interact with each and every day. That's why I refuse to take a single dollar from any corporate PAC. People all across the country, all across this district, see that change can only happen if they are part of it and play a role in it. We are worth investment. We are worth good leadership. This campaign is really about people and being present in those kitchens and living rooms and on the doorsteps, doing town halls and being accessible. It's a set of convictions and a vision for where we want to take this district. I'm Alex Morse, and I'm running for Congress. Let's build this movement together.
Awesome. There you go. I'm becoming a little more optimistic for many of these primary races. after seeing Cori Bush win, especially, like, Jamal Bowman was also, it was a big win, but it was, even though it was surprising, because Elliot Engel, I forgot his name for a second. Elliot Engel had that hot mic moment where that made the news. Him essentially saying, you know, I'm in this district. I'm only in this district because I have this primary race. Because he had a moment like that got national attention. It sort of sunk him, and it made the point that Jamal Bowman had already been making against Elliot Engel, that he's never in the district. So that win, while still surprising, because, you know, Engel had all the institutional power with him and against Bowman, the Cori Bush win, really, especially because the beginning of the night she was down by 25 points and came back to beat Lacey Clay after being down 25 points at the beginning. I mean, and the fact, of course, that he's part of a political dynasty. His father was in that district, handed the seat to Lacey. Cori Bush winning that race gave me a lot of hope for these other races. So this is definitely possible. Alex Morris can definitely take out Richard Neal. It's definitely possible. So make sure you support him. All right. I have a hard time reading your name because it's full of numbers. But Lorenza, is that what it is? Says, wait, what happened in Tennessee? You want to know what happened in Tennessee? Watch my most recent video. Javier Ramirez says, thank you, David, for all the work you do. Thank you, Javier. Hugo Florens sends me a little birdie and a heart. Thank you, Hugo. Mike Parquette says, isn't Congress where progressive ideas go to die? Seems like our national political system is a lot like a meat grinder. It doesn't matter what goes in, it always comes out as a burger. Here's what I have to say to that. Donald Trump's been in power the entire time. Justice Democrats only got people in 2018. So there hasn't been the opportunity yet. This is why I talked about earlier why getting Trump out is so important. There hasn't been the opportunity yet to really have a Democratic fight in Congress because the focus has been on Donald Trump and the obvious threat that he is. So until he is out, you're not going to be able to have those discussions, that real fight that these members bring in. Because they always go back to the excuse of Donald Trump. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer can always just point to Donald Trump and say, oh, he's the ultimate evil. Focus on him. And they don't have to really do anything. But once Trump's out, there's no more excuses. No more excuses. And they will be put on the spot. McKinley Street says, love all your takes and really value your channel, XXX. Thank you, McKinley. All right. I'm going to pause there. I may need to take a break in the middle of the stream at some point. My stomach is just hurting. 2-day-old Chinese food. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. But let's see how far I can get. All right. Let me prep this next story. You know what? I'm going to grab some water. I'll be right back. I'm back, and Progressive Voice has invaded the chat. Apparently, I support Hillary Clinton, and you spelled my last name wrong on purpose. Sahil always starting shit. In fact, we got a Clinton-related story coming up, so good timing on that. Great timing, actually. All right, so the Democratic National Convention is coming up August 17th to 20th. It's going to be 2 hours a night, so thankfully not a whole day. But because of that, there's going to be limited speaking spots at the convention. Now, of course, it's all online. There's not going to be a giant event with crowds of people. Online, 2 hours a night, limited speaking spots. So guess who they have propped up? Now, the first two names, already we got problems. So this story came out earlier. I think it came out a couple weeks ago now. John Kasich was rumored to have a speaking spot at the convention. Limited space, but they found place for John Kasich. In case you don't know, a Republican right here, and not a moderate, as he's often described. I had a video, I believe I'd covered this, but I had a video breaking down John Kasich and his various horrible positions. But Kasich and Sanders, thankfully, at least Sanders is involved. So we got Bernie Sanders there. And the idea that they're trying to portray here for this event is that Biden has a wide array of supporters. Everything from John Kasich and even further right, as you're going to see, to Bernie Sanders. But what's also notable is who they are likely not including in this event. So first, it's kind of hard. Like, I almost want to read through this entire thing because it's kind of hard to get bits and pieces out. But I made a list here in front of me of right now who is confirmed. So we got Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, who they hilariously call the, it's one of these things where it's hard to quantify, but goes without saying that the party's two most popular figures, Barack and Michelle Obama, how do you quantify that? Based on what? Like, they act like it's a given. Oh, of course, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, the most popular figures. Are they? Now, obviously they are popular. Obviously, yes, of course it makes sense to include them in this convention. But I don't know if they are really the most popular figures that are at least backing Biden. Maybe in the Democratic Party, but we got a certain independent who I would say is incredibly popular and raised a lot more small dollars in general than Barack Obama did. But what do I know? So Michelle, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris. Again, I guess she was in the primary, but she was so unpopular that she had to drop out early. Now, I wouldn't have an issue with I wouldn't have an issue with Kamala Harris being in the race if they didn't have a question mark on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So if you go through this article, there is this big debate apparently on whether they should include Ocasio-Cortez. Really, the actual, I would say, the most important, the most popular Democrat in the party, AOC, and they aren't sure whether or not she's going to be included. So let me just read maybe several quotes here, as there's some back and forth. So they do say that they want as few elected officials as possible, but almost everyone they've announced is an elected official. And if I can get some quotes here on AOC, this is actually a long article. Oh yeah, guess I should mention now as I'm scrolling through this. The Clintons, both Bill and Hillary, will be featured. Oh, well, actually, the speculation, I think, about Bill. Hillary Clinton likely will be there. There is speculation about Bill Clinton. So it's not confirmed yet whether they will be there, but the fact that they seem more likely to be there than AOC, I think, is clearly a problem. But let me find this AOC quote. Here we go. So the question of Ocasio-Cortez's role has set off a debate among Democrats. Progressive activists said she would help energize the base and bring young people behind Biden. They also noted she already served as the co-chair of Biden's Unity Task Force, with Sanders focusing on climate change, as if that's a reason to not include her, or to include her. It would be stupid to not give her a slot, said Corbin Trent, a former top advisor to Ocasio-Cortez. She's one of the best speakers the Democratic Party's got. But some moderate Democrats said privately that it would be harmful to the party, if she got a prime-time speaking position. Guess what their reasoning is? The same time, Trump is trying to link Biden to her in an effort to paint him as an empty vessel for the progressive left. This is the Democratic consultant class in a nutshell. Always playing this sort of pre-defense, but only when it comes to left-wing issues. Only when it comes to the most popular positions in the country. If you poll people on issues like the Green New Deal, on Medicare for All, on raising taxes, on billionaires, they are all incredibly popular, not just with Democratic voters, with all voters. Yet they want to cut one of the most vocal politicians for those issues. They want to cut her out of the convention. So this is something you really don't have to watch. You really don't need to pay attention to. Most of these speakers, they offer nothing. And it's going to be the same bullshit you've heard year after year after year from the Democratic Party for 40 years. You really don't need to listen to it. And the fact that the Clintons are expected to be there, but AOC is a big question mark, I think kind of tells you everything. But I haven't even... Let me get to, I think, what I would consider to be the cherry on top here. This is, I think, near the beginning of the of the article. Here you go. Democrats are also reaching out to well-known military veterans and Republicans known for their national security expertise. Neocons. They're reaching out to neocons to speak on foreign policy. I'm personally very excited to put all of my energy into slamming Joe Biden every single day when he becomes president. Now, of course, he has to become the president or else can't really do that. You got to focus on the cancerous tumor that is Donald Trump. But if Biden gets into power, and again, the way I look at voting in an election like this, where you got two horrible candidates, you look at the person you want to fight, not who you want to support. Look at the person you want to fight. Do you want to fight Trump or fight Biden? I'd rather fight Biden. I'm looking forward to focusing on this horrible Democratic Party that props up Republicans known for their national security expertise. I don't even know what else to add to that. The party is such garbage. Total garbage. That it has to get to a point where you're voting for somebody to fight them as opposed to because you're supporting them. It shows you how bad the party's gotten. But it's also a reminder that you can't simply view politics as voting every 4 years or every 2 years. You have to view it through a perspective of building movements, of building support, building energy for various issues. Because a lot of your power is not... People think all their power is only in the vote. If that was true, then all the people that predicted that if Hillary lost and Trump won, then it would turn the entire country, all the Democratic Party progressive, and Bernie Sanders would win in a landslide in 2020. Didn't happen. All it did was lower the bar. So if you view politics simply as just the vote, and that's your only way to send a message, you're missing like 75% of the picture. You have to look at building energy, at running local races, supporting local races, running in states, supporting statewide races, getting You have to build the infrastructure, build on the ground, build the interest locally and at the state level to be able to have a real impact when it comes to these national races. So you can't simply look at voting for the president as your only course of action, because it's not. Look at how change happens. It comes from the ground up. It comes from movements. You know, like civil rights didn't get through because you got the right president. No, it's from movements. Same with gay rights. Same with anything else. It's not because you got the right president. It's because the movements were there on the ground, putting the pressure on various administrations, and almost always Democratic administrations when it comes to actual changes. Even though, again, they're few and far between, but when it comes to signing it into law, it's going to be a Democrat doing that, even if they are horrible in many ways and have bad records. But you got to look at your ability to fight, not just when it comes to the vote, but in general, through movements, through political pressure. All right. Someone said I need mods in here. Just ignore the trolls. Who cares? It's not a big deal. I have a few mods, but they got lives, so they're not always in here. I should get more mods. Hey, if you're on Twitch, I recruit most of my mods on Twitch because it's easier to have a conversation with people. But if you're a regular on Twitch and you want to be a mod on here, let me know. But otherwise, I don't really care. All right, let me get to some chats here. This water's helping, but man, I am burping up Chinese food. It's not what I want to be doing right now. Okay. Where was I? I think I was here. The Sing on the left. I recognize you. Says he has no background. He was put in by Trump. My dad works at USPS. Oh, we're talking about the Postmaster General. He has no background. He's put in by Trump. My dad works at USPS. He is really effing things up. Overtime is available, but they are making vast changes. Yeah, that's what's happening. As I was discussing earlier, that Trump is purposely screwing up the Postal Service in a way to try and at least delay the election results come November. Andrew Dwyer says, if Harris joins Biden administration, would Ro Khanna have a chance to take her Senate seat? Yeah, I think so. Definitely. CMT 63 says Alex Morse, mayor for 8 years and going up against the head of Ways and Means. Yep. Alex Morse, again, make sure you're back in Massachusetts. Car Wash Freak 97 says Trump is trying to cripple U.S. Postal Service. Yep. Eric Isaac says, no, David, you can't attack Biden when he's president. You have to think about the midterms in just 2 short years. Civility, unity. Some of them are definitely going to try that, no doubt. But look, I did a video yesterday. Bernie Sanders openly attacking Barack Obama back in 2013. I think he was standing there with Mark Pocan, another Democrat. Not another in the sense that Bernie's one, but Bernie Cox is with the Democrats. But yeah, somebody who backed Barack Obama in 2008, Bernie Sanders, attacking him on Social Security. Look, these people, these new Congress members and the ones that are in, they're going to put up a fight. And you have to understand the reason why their hands have been tied, like when it comes to AOC, Rashida Tlaib, even though they have continued the fight, but in terms of the limits on their ability to really put it to the Democratic leadership right now, their hands are tied because Trump's in power. So they don't want to, they don't want to make it look like they are so focused on Democrats that they are ignoring the man that's in power who's doing all the bullshit. Like, you can't, when you have the president that is a neo-fascist, it's going to limit your ability to have certain debates. Just because the power doesn't sit with the Democratic Party. Sure, they have, the House, but when it comes to actually getting anything through, you got the Senate there that's not theirs, and you have Trump So there's only so much of a fight you can really put up. That changes. That discussion, that debate changes if Trump's out. Harry C. Smith says, do you think the enthusiasm to get Trump out will motivate so many voters that they'll vote progressive down ballots whilst there, or vice versa? Well, they're already doing it, right? Like once it gets to November, it's whoever won the primaries. So at that point, it's whoever won the primaries. But you're seeing it right now. They're leaning progressive. Many of these races, whether it's Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, Mondaire Jones, I know I'm missing a bunch, but they're the one I covered today, Bradshaw. There's a number of races where you had other choices. Voters had the more corporate-backed, Democratic-backed choice, and that choice lost. And even a case like in Kentucky, where Charles Booker barely lost to McGrath, that was down to the wire at the very last minute. And it's because McGrath had a year head start in the media. McGrath was on television on MSNBC a year ago talking about her race against Mitch McConnell. So she had a year head start. Charles Booker at the last minute finally got some media attention and closed that gap, but it was too late by the time that vote came around. But you have so many instances where people are showing that they are fed up. They're fed up with the status quo, and they are voting many of these incumbents out. Okay. Pausing there. Because, of course, we have more. All right, my favorite story of the day coming up right now. This will be the last Friday that I have Chinese food before doing a live stream. I need some Pepto-Bismol. All right, here we go. I think I'm prepped. CNBC squirmed and struggled to attack Bernie's new proposed tax on billionaires. This is one incredible clip. So I'm going to get to it in a minute, but first I want to tell you what Bernie Sanders has proposed. So, while there's a pandemic going on, massive unemployment, evictions, healthcare costs not covered, this is all happening while billionaires have continued to increase their wealth. So Bernie Sanders tweeted out here, wealth gains by billionaires during this pandemic. Jeff Bezos, $71 billion. Walton family, $21 billion. Mark Zuckerberg, $38 billion. By taxing 60% of the wealth gains by the 467 billionaires, which is just crazy. That there are 467 billionaires while there are millions of people without health care, without a job, without homes, without food, homeless. It shows you how backwards the priorities are. But by taxing 60% of the wealth gains by these 400 plus billionaires, we could cover all out-of-pocket healthcare costs for a year. Now, he also goes on to say here, the fact that Republicans took away $600 a week in unemployment benefits for 30 million Americans, while 467 billionaires made $730 billion during a global pandemic, is the real looting in America that we must end. Hashtag make billionaires pay. Now, CNBC, this is the business version of NBC, like the regular MSNBC and NBC aren't business enough, but this is the business network, discussing the proposed tax bill on billionaires.
Told you yesterday about a proposal by Senator Bernie Sanders to tax the...
Hold up, let me boost the audio for all you watching this live.
Told you yesterday about a proposal by Senator Bernie Sanders to tax the wealth that billionaires have added to during the pandemic. The senator released that proposal yesterday. It would impose a one-time 60% tax on billionaire gains between March 18th of 2020 and January 1st of 2021. Those funds would be used to pay out-of-pocket health care expenses for all Americans for a year. If the taxes were calculated right now, based on the gains we've seen in the market, here's what some billionaires would pay. Jeff Bezos would be on the line for nearly $43 billion. Elon Musk would pay $27.5 billion. Mark Zuckerberg, well, he'd have to pay about $23 billion. And Walmart's Walton family would pay nearly $13 billion. Andrew, obviously, probably something that's a non-starter, but it's certainly going to be an exercise that has people running through what billionaires have made and where that money could go.
The other issue, by the way, and I'm sure other shareholders who might not otherwise be sympathetic with the Jeff Bezos would become sympathetic with the Jeff Bezos, is because he would have to sell his shares to actually pay the tax bill, in which case all of a sudden there would be an overhang on the stock and people would get upset about whether, the value of their stock is going to go down effectively because he has to sell his shares.
Well, and also just how much control you lose over a company at that point, too. A lot of these founders like to keep their company to make sure that they can continue to do it. Some of them can do it through a different voting share structure, but not all of them have that set up, and Amazon doesn't.
Right. That's true. That's actually very, very, very true.
Yeah.
Meantime,
didn't Bezos sell like Didn't he sell like $3 billion worth of stock earlier this week? How much?
He sells down regularly to pay for his space explorations.
That's
typically
must be nice.
He's trying to find.
No, in the past, that's what he said. When he sells the shares, that's what he's selling them for.
He and Elon Musk often talk about the reason that they do this in terms of resources is, in terms of money at this point, is literally to fund the other endeavor, which I've always found sort of fascinating element. Meantime, I don't.
Okay. Oh, man. So much to comment on there. So first, I got to give credit here to Case Study QB. Check out Case Study QB. Does always brings these clips up and has also begun doing some work himself. So check out his channel on YouTube as well. But so this is where do I start? Okay. They first call it a non-starter. That this tax on billionaires, oh, well, obviously it's a non-starter. Look at how they immediately shut down the conversation without even debating it. Oh, non-starter. Taxing billionaires when all these people have just lost their job, lost their health care, are homeless, being evicted. Taxing billionaires, that's crazy talk. Conversation ended. Like, are you insane? It really shows you how completely disconnected they are. And by the way, if they're not disconnected, then how horrible these people are, because they should be fully aware of what is going on, of what's happened to American lives, millions of people without a job, without health care, without any real financial assistance. To tax a billionaire, and by the way, taxing just what they've made during the pandemic, and not even all of it, taxing 60% of what they've made. They still got billions left over that they've made during the pandemic, in addition to the billions they already have. But no, non-starter. And then he goes on. I always forget, what's this guy's name? Andrew Ross Sorkin, I think. But he goes on to say, well, if you don't feel empathy for Jeff Bezos, well, you will feel empathy for him when you realize he has to sell his shares. Oh, woe is me. He's got to sell his shares. Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, that changes everything. That person, that family with 3 kids I just saw on the street, they got to stay homeless. Jeff Bezos has to sell his shares. That's the real issue in America. We can't have billionaires selling their shares. And then the other guy, I love him. I've seen this guy before. I don't think he's always like this, but I love him in this clip. He brings up, must be nice when it comes to selling their shares to invest in space. He brings up the fact that they already do sell their shares, but they do it to invest in another private endeavor of their own. In space, where there's no people. People are down here. You got to help these people first. Unbelievable. Must be nice. Thank God he was there to bring this up. to bring up the fact that they sell their shares, because otherwise they would have moved on. You saw these two. They had no discussion, no real discussion, just went straight to saying it was a non-starter and defending Jeff Bezos, having empathy for Jeff Bezos. And I mean, you could see him almost squirming and laughing while making the point, because I think he feels stupid and realizes how dumb he sounds while making that point for feeling empathy for Jeff Bezos. But thank God this other guy here came in with the selling the shares for space point, because they would have just moved on and never even had a discussion about this. Unfreaking believable how totally disconnected these people are. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And by the way, do you ever see the opposite of this discussion? Show me the socialists. Show me the Marxists on television discussing how this capitalist system is gross and how 60% isn't enough. Actually, he needs to be taxed way more. He needs to not be a billionaire anymore. Where's that discussion? Find that discussion on television. You're not going to find it. The discussion in politics on TV is always on the right. Always. When it comes to economic policy, it is always 100% on the right. Now, before we end here, I want to play this clip. Bernie Sanders talking about what the difference is between liberals and progressives. I thought this was a good point he made here during his live stream with Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, and Rashida Tlaib.
I think one of the differences between liberals and progressives, and we are progressives, is that it's not just we're fighting for the right things. We are prepared to take on powerful special interests. And that we know, and I've always known, that real change never takes place without struggle. That is the history of any real change in America. No one gives you anything. You got to take it, you got to fight for it. In the last 4 months, you may or may not know, and the viewers may or may not know, that 500 billionaires have seen their wealth increase by $700 billion in the midst of this pandemic, when, as you have all described, your constituents are in desperate condition, losing their homes, not having any health care, unable to pay their debts. All right. What do you make of a nation in which 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of America, and the billionaires are becoming richer every single day? What is that about? What do we do about it? Is it an issue? Many of my colleagues in the Senate don't talk about it. The corporate media doesn't talk about it.
And we just saw the perfect example of them not talking about it. It is so, I mean, I can't make this point enough. It is so vital that there are people like this in Congress. In the case of Bowman and Cori Bush, will be in Congress next year, because these conversations will be had on a national level. And with Trump hopefully out, there'll be a focused discussion on policy, a focused discussion on how to actually help Americans. You know, this is not, the pandemic and the effects of it are not just simply going to evaporate and go away next year. People are going to be still left well into debt, evicted from their homes, no health care. There's going to be a real discussion about how do you rebuild the country. And you do that by actually investing into society. And there's no denying that. You saw it with the New Deal. You can see it again. So there's going to be a real fight for those issues. But you got to get the tumor out first to have those discussions. But again, just have to end on these freaks right here. Unfreaking believable. Okay. If you ever see clips like that, by the way, send them to me. I want to highlight more dipshits like that. I want to highlight all the dipshits. Make sure they all get their day in the sun. People like that should walk around and be shamed. They should feel sick to their stomach about what they do for a living. All right. get to some chats here. All right. I forget where I was. Here, I think. Miranda Juvon says, why can't the Clintons just go away already? Along with anyone who gleefully supported this stupid, endless war we're stuck in. Eat the rich, feed us all. Thank you, Miranda. Junie McGrath says, don't forget to support Kara Eastman in Nebraska. Marie Newman in Illinois. Paula Swearingen in West Virginia. Adrienne Bell. Donna Imam. Mike Siegel, all in Texas. There you go. Check out, in case you missed any of those names, just scroll to Junie McGrath's highlighted super chat that I imagine is still there somewhere, and look them up, support them. The thing on the left says if they can sell their shares to do random BS, they can sell those shares to help people. This system needs to die. Good job, Bernie. Let's get it done. Absolutely. Rad Zoso says they need to have Richard Wolff on CNBC. Yes. By the way, you should interview him, David. You know what? That's a good idea. I should interview Richard Wolff. I really enjoy Richard Wolff. He has a great Democracy at Work is his YouTube page. He was on the Michael Brooks show a lot, and always enjoyed those discussions. All right. Next story. Got a couple more stories today. I'll be ending on a Ben Shapiro clip, so you'll want to wait for that. But let me set this one up first. Several links for this one, but if you haven't seen this story yet, you may laugh and cry at the same time. Okay. The man that created ICE is painting immigrants. Let me start this video over. There's no coming back from that one. Painting immigrants. The man that created ICE is painting immigrants for a new book. Yes, George Bush. This is one hell of a story. George W. Bush to release 43 portraits of immigrants in new book. Oh, how amazing. This man has so much heart that he's the one that created ICE that has led to all the destruction for the lives of millions of immigrants. Former President Bush will release a book of 43 portraits of immigrants in conjunction with an exhibition on the value of American immigration at the George W. Bush Presidential Center that will feature the paintings. I am just amazed. I'm amazed at just the complete erasing of history with George Bush. The fact that Trump is able to do a lot of what he's doing now because of George Bush just goes completely ignored. And of course, this article ignores it as well. They just discuss, the book from Bush, a prolific amateur painter, will be titled Out of Many, One, and will publish in March, according to a statement from the book's publisher, Crown. quote, through powerful 4-color portraits, personally painted by the president himself, and their accompanying stories. Out of many, one reminds us of the countless ways in which America has been strengthened by the individuals who have come here in search of a better life. Oh, how beautiful. Now let's look at the history of ICE. Created by George fucking Bush. With its passage in November 2002, the Homeland Security Act set, by the way, this is from the ICE website, set into motion what would be the single largest government reorganization since the creation of the Department of Defense. Opening its doors in March 2003, one of the component agencies in the new Department of Homeland Security was the Bureau of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, now known as U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. ICE was granted a unique combination of civil and criminal authorities to better protect national security, and strengthen public safety in response to the deadly attacks perpetrated on 9/11, which amounts to now deporting immigrant families that are not hurting anybody. So, I mean, do I really have to go through this? I guess I do. ICE raids on U.S. immigrant families risk serious abuses. These raids have been going on now this entire administration, of course, also before Trump, but have been ramped up under Trump. So, you know, there's a million articles on this. This is from the Human Rights Watch. Here from Vox, under Trump, ICE has targeted immigrants ranging from those seeking student visas to those working at poultry farms in Mississippi. At one point, the agency levied hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines against immigrants living in sanctuary churches. And just last month, the Trump administration was planning to send armed and highly trained law enforcement units to sanctuary cities across the country to support ICE in carrying out immigration raids. U.S. District Judge Dolly G. of California, this is a recent story, issued the scathing order. So to give you what this is about, judge orders ICE to free detained immigrant children because of COVID-19. So this is a story from June 26th. So issued the scathing order on Friday afternoon, saying the Trump administration had failed to provide even the most basic health protections for children and their families amid the pandemic. She described the ICE-operated facilities as being on fire, adding that there is no more time for half measures. This is because of George Bush, who is writing this damn book, or painting this book. Let me read another quote here, because all of this is completely ridiculous. In the book's introduction, Bush expressed hope that his book would help present immigration as a unifying, uplifting issue. Understand the issue of symbolism being like the sole focus of the Democratic Party is not just the Democratic Party. It is also people like George Bush who are trying to completely paint over their history as horrible individuals. This is what they do. Oh, who cares? Who cares about starting a war in Iraq? Who cares about all the people that died over there? Who cares about the fact that he started ICE and all these families are being deported? Who cares? What matters is that he has this amazing book dedicated to immigration and lifting up these immigrant voices and really showcasing how important and unifying the issue of immigration is. I mean, George, look, he's doing great work. Great work, George Bush. Quote, while I recognize that immigration can be an emotional issue, I reject the premise that it is a partisan issue. It is perhaps the most American of issues, and it should be one that unites us, he wrote, adding that my hope is that this book will help focus our collective attention on the positive impacts that immigrants are making on our country. Amazing. Horrible, horrible man and horrible people that allow him to completely erase his record over this bullshit. Insane. Thank God we're ending on a Ben Shapiro video so I can laugh. Can't laugh too much at this insanity. All right, back to super chats here. Where was I? I have no idea. Oh, yes. Bob Benelli says, watch Aliens, They Live Again. Aliens. This movie is perfectly relevant today. Okay. Now I get what you're saying. Because you use the alien icon, I get people have a limitation on the characters they use, so sometimes what I'm reading can be confusing. But you use the alien emoji, so I was a little confused. But you're saying watch the movie Aliens. This movie is perfectly relevant today. All right. Should I admit this? I'll admit this. I have not seen. I've never seen any of the Alien movies. I should probably. There was a time there, maybe like 15 years, growing up, where I really did not watch anything. Did not watch any movies coming out. So I've been doing a little catch up recently. I recently watched all the Godfather movies during this pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, actually, I watched all the Godfather movies. Fantastic movies. They absolutely hold up today. Such great movies. So maybe I will check out Alien. Yeah, maybe. Ravi Premi says, W can paint my brown. I will not finish the sentence, but yes, paint your brown butt. There you go. That's the PG way of saying it. Phil's Pargo, thank you for your super chat. Tony East Coast sends a thank you heart. Thank you, Tony. Tony or Tani? I never know how to pronounce it with an I. It's confusing. All right, pausing there in the super chats. Let me get to this Ben Shapiro video because it's good stuff. It's good stuff. And I've only watched the first clip, so there are 2 clips here. Sometimes for a live stream, I just don't have time, and but I'll tell you when I haven't watched the clip beforehand, so you know that. But I'll only do it in cases like this where it's going to be, I imagine, amusing. And so I'd rather just react to what Ben Shapiro is going to say than know what I'm getting into. All right. Oh, the second clip's only 12 seconds long. Okay, well, it doesn't really say much. Okay. Are we ready? Ben Shapiro was on television on, is this Fox? Not even Fox News. Another television station. Ben Shapiro was on television talking about how Nancy Pelosi has moved to the radical left. You heard it here first, folks. Nancy Pelosi, radical leftist. Let's check out these clips of. Let's watch, and then I will react.
Radical left primarying people, the Justice Democrats primarying people and winning. It's why when President Trump suggests that Joe Biden is going to be a vehicle for the radical left, he's right. I mean, I don't see Biden as providing any sort of serious obstacle to the radical left if the radical left really starts to push. You saw this with Nancy Pelosi, too. Last year, there was that bit of a dust-up between Pelosi and the squad, and that immediately was curtailed, and the squad basically took control of a lot of the agenda items in the Democratic Party. Pelosi's moved radically to the left, even over the course of the last 18 months.
Is the radical left going to take over the Democrat Party? Is that the future of the... And by the way, what happens to the right? Does the right have to push further right to the fringe?
I don't think the right has to push further right. I think the idea there would be that as the radical left pushes the Democrats to the left, the right might have a shot at the center. I mean, that at least would be my hope. I think that there's going to be a liberal reaction to the radical left. And you're starting to see that build. I mean, that Harper's Weekly open letter with 158 people on the sort of moderate left saying that cancel culture is bad. That was highly controversial in Democratic circles. More and more, I'm seeing people who are sort of normal, run-of-the-mill liberals who may disagree about tax rates or about the role of the government in medical care, starting to recognize that the radical left is deeply dangerous. My hope is that that will provide the basis for some sort of new coalition, or even if we don't all agree on some of those basic matters, we certainly all agree that cancel culture is a bad thing.
Well, we would agree. I'm not sure that the squad and that radical left would agree. I think that's what they thrive on, and that's what they fundraise on. So let's talk about the squad. Do you see them becoming more prominent in the party?
We're starting to see that now. So in 2018, the Justice Democrats endorsed a whole slate of candidates, and pretty much everybody lost. And now you've seen, just in the last couple of months, a couple of long-time Democratic Congress people. I mentioned Elliot Engel in New York and William Lacey Clay in Missouri. William Lacey Clay is a 20-year veteran of Congress. His father was one of the founders of the Congressional Black Caucus. He's part of a political dynasty over there. And he was ousted by the Justice Democrats. Rashida Tlaib just won her re-elect effort in her primary, so did Ilhan Omar. So the kind of threat from the moderates to the radicals obviously is not serious at this point. Now, part of that might just be that the radicals are really enthused thanks to President Trump's presence on the ballot, thanks to the huge protests that we've seen in the streets. Maybe the Democrats start to gain more of a whip hand over the squad.
I might as well just finish this. 12 seconds long. Let's finish this point.
As Joe Biden becomes president and change of administration, the most organized force tends to take the most control, and the most organized force in the Democratic Party right now is the most radical.
All right, Ben, we're going to leave it there before we go.
All right. Man. Notice how he never actually brings up any points to back up what he's saying. So he claims Nancy Pelosi has moved radically to the left. He just puts that out there. Doesn't say how. Doesn't say in what way. I mean, Nancy Pelosi shut down the paycheck protection that Pramila Jayapal, who isn't even a socialist, but, sure, more left in the party. She's a great congressperson. But Jayapal brought up the paycheck protection so that Americans would have some more financial assistance. Pelosi shot that down. A universal basic income that pretty much every other country has during this pandemic. Pelosi shot that down. Wasn't even a discussion. Yet somehow Medicare for all never gets a vote, never gets a discussion, nothing. In what way has Nancy Pelosi moved to the radical left? And it's also funny, by the way, to point out what's radical to Ben Shapiro. Guaranteeing health care to people during a pandemic so that, if you get sick, you don't die because you're poor. And even just separate from the pandemic, how about you just get cancer? Ben Shapiro thinks guaranteeing health care is radical, even though, again, many other countries have health care guaranteed. But that's radical for Ben Shapiro. While billionaires are increasing their wealth, it's radical to guarantee people health care as a human right. Radical is a living wage. Living wage is radical. It's radical to think that if people work 40 hours a week, they should be able to actually afford rent and food. That's radical for Ben Shapiro. Not starting wars. Radical position. It's very radical to value human life. Can't value all human life is not the same. Americans are more important than everybody else in the world. Not starting wars is a very radical position for Ben Shapiro. Just, it really comes down to general compassion and human decency. For Ben Shapiro, that's radical. There was a recent video I covered. Ben Shapiro said that empathy does not belong in politics. That gives you an idea of what motivates him. If you're not motivated by empathy, then you're a sociopath. So, having politicians that are sociopaths, that makes more sense to you than having people actually represent the interests of the average individual? But no, that's radical. It's radical to have these campaigns like Cori Bush that he mentioned, like Jamal Bowman, like AOC. It's radical to have campaigns that are funded by average individuals as opposed to corporations who then go in and control these politicians when they're in Congress. It's radical to actually be represented by the people. And then he goes into cancel culture. Now, look, there is definitely an aspect of the left that I again, I don't even want to call it the left. To me, it's not the left. There's a lot of the so-called woke scolding and that kind of BS that goes on. That's from liberals. That's from people that backed Hillary Clinton simply because she would be the first female president and no other reason. People that are actually on the left care about the issues, care about fighting for politicians that are going to fight for you. That's why the actual left backed Bernie Sanders. It wasn't because he was an old white man and we need more old white men in power. It's because he was the only person that was backing the issues that would actually help the average individual. When it comes to cancel culture, though, you have to. This is the way I've discussed it. So I covered that Barry Weiss. I have a much deeper dive on cancel culture and the Barry Weiss thing, the Harper's letter that he mentioned there in a different video. I'll link to that above later when I cut this out. But the left has been canceled for decades. Decades. Find me the cable news host who's a socialist, an actual socialist, or a Marxist, someone who's critical of capitalism. Somebody who wants to move away from capitalism. Find me that cable news host. Where are they? They don't exist. Where's Noam Chomsky? The most discussed, propped up figure on the left, intellectual on the left, Noam Chomsky, he's not allowed on cable news. That's how afraid of his ideas cable news is, because Noam Chomsky showcases how media brainwashes people. So they don't want to have him on. Where are these actual left-wing shows? They don't exist. You had Phil Donahue. His show got canceled on MSNBC when he came out against the Iraq War. That's an actual canceling. They ended his show because he was against the Iraq War. By the way, you know who was for the Iraq War? Ben Shapiro. This is a guy that people listen to, get advice from, think he knows what he's talking about. He's been wrong about everything. It is truly, and not even just, by the way, to go back to the canceling thing, not even just Phil Donahue. Others lost their show. How many voices were actually allowed on television back during the Iraq War? There was Janine Garofalo, a comedian, was allowed on Fox News to be anti-Iraq War, but they never had anybody else on because they just brought on Janine Garofalo to act like, oh, look, only a comedian is against the Iraq War. And they made fun of her for being against the Iraq War. That's how skewed the coverage has been. And it wasn't just the Iraq War, it continues today. Any discussion around foreign policy is always heavily skewed towards neocons. Always. Yet somehow, cancel culture. Oh, cancel culture is a big issue on the left. They keep canceling the right. We're all getting canceled. Who the fuck's getting canceled? You're on television, Ben Shapiro. This guy's on Fox News all the time. Who the fuck's being canceled? Dave Rubin, again, a guy who talks all about cancel culture. On television, on Fox News all the time. How canceled are you really if you're on television? If you're on national media, on a national platform? These people are just complete jokes. Total jokes. It is... I feel like it's gotten to a point where I don't have to cover this to educate people. I just have to cover this for entertainment purposes, because you should all know this by now. All of their bullshit is easily debunked. Easily debunked. This doesn't take any work. You just have to watch their clips. They don't back up what they say. They don't have anything to back up what they say. Again, the Nancy Pelosi being radical left, that is such a ridiculous idea that he couldn't bring up any examples. So yeah, I may be covering more of this, more of these appearances in the future. Again, not really to educate, mostly to entertain. I do find these people entertaining in the sense that they are just completely ridiculous. Okay. It just went black there. Okay. Am I done? I think I'm done my stories. Should have done more Ben Shapiro impressions. That just... Man. It is amazing, the world that these people create for themselves. Just, they live in total fiction. Total fiction. All right. Should I do the rest of the show in Ben Shapiro's voice? Hey, guys. Feel like sometimes the voice changes. It's Ben Shapiro hitting puberty. All right, where are we here? All right. Literal Lils says, David, your reading voice killed me. LOL. I love your channel. Oh, thank you. Yeah, sometimes I pull up that reading voice when there is some dramatic reading to do that we should all be rolling our eyes at collectively. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. Pat the Batman fan says, you must do the Shapiro voice. Well, I did. So I hope you enjoyed it. Pat the Batman fan again says the movie he meant was They Live, John Carpenter. What? How was I supposed to get that from this? Watch They Live. Why would you use an alien emoji? How am I supposed to know that? Okay, well, next time say, watch the movie, quote, They Live, and then I will know you're talking about a movie. That's so funny. I got that super chat completely wrong. But, all right, now I understand it. Harry C. Smith says, is Shapiro ever going to finish high school? Oh, he did. Should I play it? Oh, I can't play it. I don't think I can play it. But there's a video of Ben Shapiro singing a song. I believe it's from Les Mis. If I play it, it would be a copyright problem. But look up Ben Shapiro Les Mis. I think it's Les Mis. That's what he should stick to. And look, to show you I'm very fair, he didn't do a bad job. He sings a lot better than I can. So he's also classically trained. But it is funny to watch. He should probably do his commentary in his singing voice, as it's a lot more enjoyable to listen to than his regular voice is. But yeah, he should stick to singing, stick to the violin. He also plays the violin. He can do those things. But clearly he has no empathy as a human being. Like, I'm not even saying he's dumb. He's not. I wouldn't say Ben Shapiro's a dumb guy, but he completely lacks humanity. That's really the issue. His politics lacks empathy, and he has discussed that himself. Bob Manelli says, no, the movie They Live, damn it. Well, if you simply communicated that to me with some quotation marks, then I would understand what you were saying. And by calling it a movie, I would know that. But I have not seen that movie. I don't even know what it's about. They Live. From 1988. That one? With Roddy Piper? All right. If you say so. Jay Pearson sends me a super chat saying, keep it up. Thank you. Shankadeep Shum says, the Alien movie is a great example of Vorporation versus the Little Guys. Do you mean Corporation? Watch the extended edition of Alien. Well, there you go. So I accidentally recommended a great movie. a great anti-capitalist movie. Fantastic. Kaven Sebki. Apologies if I mispronounced that last name. It's not fair to pay for mama cows to be exploited because you want creamy sauce. Do you know how horrible the dairy industry is? There is no excuse. This goes to the issue, though, when it comes to... So this is, first of all, very late super chat. I think we talked about dairy at the beginning of the stream. But, yeah, like, I hear you. But me, not having a creamy sauce in my burrito, that's not going to destroy the dairy industry. That's what activism's about. That's what politics is about. That's what regulation's about. So you can have those discussions, though. You may be. I honestly can't tell if you're joking with the super chat, but no, the individual action can only do so much. It can only do so much. That isn't to say don't do it for those reasons, but to guarantee actual change, it has to happen through activism, through regulation. Individual action alone is not going to solve anything. And by the way, to come after me for not eating or for eating dairy sometimes when I don't eat meat, come on now. This is how you lose people, is by attacking people who are already trying. Literal Lils says, take a shot every time you heart, quote unquote, radical left. LOL. Joke I do not recommend. Could be deadly. Yes. Got to ensure. This is why I never play those drinking games, because you may kill yourself. Jose Castillo says Nancy Pelosi is more of a pre-existing condition than radical left. Junior McGraw says, I don't believe in sacrifices, but if we could somehow sacrifice Ben Shapiro to get Michael Brooks back, I would support that wholeheartedly. I think we all would. That's a no-brainer. Ravi Parimi says, will Ben sing a different tune when he has no income and needs health care? He'll be fine for the rest of his life. He'll be fine. He'll be fine regardless. Ben Shapiro is somebody who's never going to feel empathy. He will never change. There are some people that I can see, like Tommy Lahren. I think she may change. She just put a video out recently about toxic masculinity. I mean, once you start doing that, you begin to offend your audience, and you may start waking up to a different view. But Ben Shapiro he's been in this business since he was a child. He's not getting out of it. Fully automated luxury LGBT, I can't see the rest of your name, unfortunately, but it sounds pretty awesome. Says, did you notice that TV host wanted to move the Republican Party even further right? That channel has a definite fascist on their show, like WTF. Yeah. That was a point. I should have spoken to that as well. How the host at least wants to move the party more further right. Ben Shapiro seems okay with it being a centrist party, whatever that means in his brain. I don't think a truly centrist GOP party would or GOP would be anti-abortion. I mean, that's the one. Like when it comes to, the social issues like abortion, that's where there is a clear difference between Democrats and Republicans. But when it comes to the economic issues, which they always shy away from, the Ben Shapiros of the world never want to discuss those issues because they have to end up defending billionaires, and that isn't a favorable place to be in when you're trying to win over an audience. But that's why they focus almost all their discussion on cancel culture or on cultural issues or social issues. They rarely ever get to the economics, get to how people are underpaid, how people can't afford healthcare, can't afford food, are losing their jobs right now, while billionaires are amassing wealth. Where was I? Bob Manelli again. I appreciate the super chat, but you seem angry at me for reading your super chat correctly and you not communicating it properly. I'm sorry, guy. Says, watch the damn movie They Live. There you go. Puts the quotes around it. This is the relevant movie I was talking about, not Aliens. Aliens makes no sense. They Live, 1985. Watch it. All right. Jesus. Bob, settle down. It's going to be okay. Mallory Buckingham, thanks for the super chat. Miranda Juvan says, Aliens really is a badass movie. I like how I started this. Main character is a feminist warrior icon. They Live, not so good. Oh, Bob, you got some competition here. And I got to say, Miranda Juvan is a big supporter of a prominent voice in this community. I don't know. I'm tending to side with Miranda Jouvin here on aliens, but you know they live. I'll check it out. I'll check it out too. Player 2 says veggie burger. Yes. I'm not sure the point you're making there, but there are these burgers now I'm seeing advertised on television. They're hilarious. They are a mix between beef and plant-based. Anything to keep the industry going. Anything to keep the meat industry going. It's people are gonna really just eat those and end up like they're seeing themselves lose market share to like Beyond Meat, which makes a damn good burger and is plant-based and is very hard to tell. Sure, there's a difference, but it's minuscule difference, and you don't feel like shit after you eat it, which is one of the many pluses of eating a plant-based burger. But Beyond Meat is incredible, cutting into the market share of beef. So they got these half beef, half plant-based burgers out now. It's desperate, is what it is. I forgot to tell you. Did I tell you? We're only on Super Chats now. I went through all the videos, all my segments. So let me bring up the chat here. Though it may get rowdy, but that's why I rely on the automatic moderation. But let me grab some more Super Chats while this is up. Keeping in mind, I can't read what's going on here while I'm addressing these. I'm just putting these chats up so you can all have your voices heard. But let me get to some more of these chats. Josh Margulis says dairy and eggs still lead. Okay. I don't want to say either of those words on the stream as it affects my ability to be allowed on YouTube, unfortunately. But says, are you a baby cow? No. Then why are you drinking a baby cow's milk? Baby cows are murdered. Okay. I don't eat meat. You're attacking the wrong man here. Clo says, love you, David. Thank you. I love you too. Chaz Howard says, what do you think of the SCOTUS decision in Oklahoma with the Native American community? Which one? Is that related to the pipeline? Or am I thinking of a different thinking of a different one? I don't know what you're talking about. So I don't know. But there was a recent one in relation to I don't think it was Oklahoma there. West Virginia is what I'm thinking about, I believe. But there was basically the approval of a pipeline through West Virginia. Let me see if I can find what you're talking about, though. Oh, I didn't even see this. I totally missed this story. Supreme Court rules that about half of Oklahoma is Native American land. I got to read more into this. I completely missed this. All right, where was I? Hard to Know says, I'm meditating, listening to the show. When you spoke about your creamy sauce and not giving it up, and it broke me. Sorry about your bad Chinese food. That's funny. Fully automated. I don't know why it was amusing to you, but I'm glad it was. Fully automated luxury LGBT says, Zizek has a good video on They Live. It's good. Oh, all right. All right, I'll trust Zizek over Bob, who's angry at me. I'm sorry, Bob. I'm sorry I misunderstood what your super chat was. But if Zizek is back in it, then I'll check it out. Miranda Jouvin says, you just made my whole week, David. Thank you for the kind words. No problem. Player 2 says 2 veg burgers for you. All right. Laura Shin says, love from Texas. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Laura. Very active chat today. Incredible. This is, for me, this is the part of the stream I enjoy the most. Just chatting with my people here. Seeing some funny chats pop up on screen. Was there? I think I heard someone else come in. I do have to get off soon though. I think I've been here too long. Elizabeth says, great stuff from a new fan in Toronto. Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. Maybe I'll walk by you on the street one day randomly. All right, I'm gonna wind down. There's about a minute delay on the stream, so if you want to send a chat in, do it now. Otherwise, I may miss you by the end of the stream, as I'm gonna try to get off in a couple minutes. But Chaz Howard says, sorry I wasn't more specific. It's a good read. Also, you shouldn't be shamed for drinking milk. There's better ways to talk about it. You were the Oklahoma decision person. Yes, I agree with you. But I also, I don't know how we got on this topic. I hate milk. I don't drink milk. I only have milk products occasionally. I don't even like cheese. I'm essentially, I'm at least sort of lactose intolerant. I imagine if I actually was, I really couldn't drink it. But like if I have, like I can't have ice cream. If I have ice cream, I get sick. If I have pizza with a lot of cheese on it, I don't feel well. Maybe I am lactose intolerant. I've just never gotten checked. But I generally avoid most dairy. But when it comes to burrito sauce, I'm sorry. Until there is a creamy vegan burrito sauce that is widely available in the various burrito places that I attend, then I'm going to be having some dairy in my burrito sauce. It's just the way it is. I can't stop it. Sorry. If you want that to change, then you should fight to get non-dairy burrito sauce in all types of burrito institutions. But until that happens, this is why I say change happens politically, through activism, through movements. So if you want me to stop having dairy, you have to be able to fight to expand my burrito sauce options to non-dairy choices that I do not currently have. All right, one last refresh and we're good. All right, thank you all for coming here. Don't leave, David. We love you. I'm sorry. I have to go. By the way, speaking of burrito sauce, is this I'm not sure if this is a Canadian Chipotle issue or just a my location Chipotle issue, but where the hell's the sauce? When I've gone to Chipotle, I don't really go there, but there's one near me, so occasionally, I've been there a couple times. They don't have any burrito sauce. They have sour cream, which I don't want. Again, I stay away from dairy. But they don't have any sauce. How do you not have sauce in your burrito? I don't know how that works. So I'm not sure if that's a Chipotle in Canada thing or just my location, but it sucks to not have any sauce in my burrito. All right. If you don't know what this is all about, the beginning of the stream, somehow this came up. I kind of forget. All right. Thank you all for coming. This has been a great time. I've enjoyed it. I'll be here next Friday. And of course, I have a Twitch show, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., Monday to Thursday. Come hang out, twitch.tv/TheRationalNational. Link is below the video in the description box. Follow me on Twitch and you will be notified when I go live. All right. Thank you all. See you next time.